guys, today I want to talk about note-taking and how to do it. This video will be particularly helpful for anybody in later undergraduate years, those thinking about doing a dissertation or who are doing a dissertation for the first time this year, for new master's students and for new PhD students, but I hope that everybody will get something out of it. I'm going to quickly run through the notebooks that I use and then talk a bit more about my process. And I hope that this will be helpful to you moving forward to think about your own note-taking process. I use a couple of different types of notebooks for note-taking. The first are just plain black soft cover books. I've spoken about these before. I prefer the Leuchtturm 1917, but you can use anything you like, even composition notebooks from W.H. Smith. It doesn't matter what you take notes in as long as it works for you. I take notes in a really particular way, and I have shown you this before, and I've had some questions about it, so I just want to address this for the moment. I write in columns. You can see, instead of writing across the whole page, I write in 2 columns. This isn't a special technique. It isn't for saving paper, it isn't for saving time. It's because I find it easier to think through what I'm doing if it's all directly in front of me. So instead of having to skim across the page, if I'm just going in tiny bits, then I can just see the whole thing at a glance, and it's just my personal preference. For some texts, I write a whole book, a whole notebook for the text. Sometimes I use these big ones, the same size. This one's actually a Moleskin, not a Leuchtturm, but exactly the same process. There's no difference in these than in the general notes. It's just that I know that in some books I'm going to need to write a lot of notes from one text, either if I'm reading the whole book, as is the case with Vasquez's More Than Belief, or if I know that a lot of sections from that book are going to be helpful, as is the case with Jennifer Larson's Understanding Greek Religion. And so sometimes I also use these Moleskin jotters or Leuchtturm jotters, or even just jotters from W.H. Smith. Just smaller books that I can keep notes from one author, from one text contained within one little notebook. The last type of book that I use is this big Moleskin Professional notebook. This has a special layout which I find is really good for taking notes on primary source material. So what I have is, this is the actual text. Usually I only write in English in these, because then in the sides I write Greek vocabulary that is particularly important for the meaning of the text, or for how I feel that I'm going to use this text. At the top I write referencing information, including what the text is and where I found it, who this translation is by if it's not mine, and where I found the actual text. These are generally not full ancient texts that I read. It's just when I'm reading through scholarship and they use textual evidence or material evidence. I also just paste pictures in here, or even sketch or draw, write web addresses for where I can find more detailed pictures. And just make general notes on ancient source material. Then I can just flip through it as I need and find material. So, on to the actual note-taking process. The first thing that I obviously do is read the text. Not all the way through. I do integrate note-taking and reading at the same time, and I do write out a lot of direct quotes into my notebooks from scholarship and primary source, ancient source material. And that's all very well and good, but if you're going to do that, you also need to make sure that you are writing a commentary of what you think about those passages. In the same way that you would write a commentary from an ancient source passage, you still need to write commentary for scholarship as well. Make a shorthand system and make one that works for you so that you can easily differentiate ideas that come from the author whose text you are reading, whose work you are reading, and your own ideas. The very worst thing is to be skimming through your notes and come across a great idea and you don't know if it's yours or if it was in the text. I do that by putting little red circles next to ideas that come directly from me. I also sometimes put little abstracted light bulbs if it's something that I kind of is starting to form an idea. Even if that idea is not fully formed yet. I find that really helps me when I'm just quickly going through my notes to try and find something. Active reading is the most important thing for note taking. If you are not critically reading, critically engaging with the scholarship or the source material that you're reading, then your notes are basically going to be useless. And you need to be critically engaging with the text all the time, interrogating the author, really thinking about what it is that they're saying, how you read it, how it fits in with your body of knowledge, how it relates to other authors that you've read, how it relates to your own ideas. Don't read texts in isolation. Don't make notes in isolation. I really like numbering the pages of my notebooks so that I can provide my own cross-referencing to notes, either if a scholar has cited another scholar's work that I've already read, I can cross-reference to my notes on that. Or if ideas are coming up in different places, then I can easily see those links and connections. Referencing in your notebook is actually really important. It's better to over-reference than to have to go back to a text later just to get a reference. That means writing page numbers. I often write them at the top of every page, at the end of every quote, at the end of every precede thought. And I write full bibliographic entries at the beginning of every new text that I read. I also make sure when I read a text that reference is in my EndNote library so that I always have all of the information that I need. So when I'm actually writing, I can really easily create those references. I don't have to do any back and forward. And at the end of a piece, spend a little bit of time summarizing what you got out of the text, what you got out of this piece of scholarship. Write how you think it fits in with the body of literature. Write what you think the main points were, what you took away from it. And you can't read for everything at once. Having an idea of what you want to get out of a text before you start reading it is really crucial in making effective notes, but it does mean that you might have to read articles or chapters several times to get everything that you need. But second and subsequent times are obviously much easier to go through than the first time that you're reading something. My final note-taking step is to digitize. It's really great writing by hand. I find writing my notes by hand makes me think more deeply, makes me interrogate texts more critically, but there's one big problem with non-digitized texts, and that is I can't control F. I need to be able to quickly get through my notes in as little time as possible, to find things and not be rereading my notes over and over again. So I type all my notes into OneNote, and I have them broken up by types of notes. So I have tabs across the top. I have scholarship, ancient source material, event notes, plans and planning notes, And then in each category, I have a series of pages that are alphabetized by author, surname, or by author for ancient texts. One of the things that you can do when you digitize your text is make notes on your notes. Make notes if anything is unclear, if you have not understood something in your own notes, and believe me, that does happen. You need to go back and read the text, figure out what's going on. But this is also a great place to make notes about how texts fit into a larger body of scholarship. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below or reach out to me on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!